Okay, we'll go ahead and go over the rest of these now. On number four, once again, that was a convenient sample, so a clear source of bias by only asking the people who are already using the lounge. You're probably not going to get a accurate opinion of how everybody thinks. On the next one, you're asking them to participate in an online poll, so that is self-selection, a self-selected sample, and that is a huge source of bias because once again, the people who feel strongly are the ones who are going to show up. This one, if he sends the survey to all collegiate coaches and uses the surveys that are returned, that is a pretty good attempt at a survey, but only since only some of them return them, it's kind of self-selection still. So you've got a huge issue with bias because those who don't respond are probably feel differently than those who do. This next one, if you pick every third person, that is a systematic sample. And then this one, if you're dividing it into seating areas and survey everybody in 5 random seating areas, that is a cluster sample. If all the seating areas are kind of the same cost and same price and similar experience, there'd be no problem with bias there. But I do have some concerns if the different seating areas might not necessarily be equivalent. It wouldn't have been the best thing to use a cluster sample, but a cluster sample is what they did. This next one, if you do every 20th, once again, that's systematic. So every 20th is a systematic and no source of bias there. And then the last one, if you are asking them to go to a website to vote, once again, it's self-selection. They are choosing whether to participate or not. So that's a huge source of bias because the people who participate have the strongest opinions. So that's your information on that. The last thing we were looking at is different types of data collection. Once you have your sample picked, you have to get data from it. So the 4 types are an experiment. That usually means you have 2 different groups. One's a treatment group, and one of them sometimes is a control group that you don't do much of anything to. An observational study literally means you just watch, you just observe, so you just have one group that gets observed. A survey is when you ask a question, and then a simulation is using a coin or a computer model or something like that to predict. A simulation is used a lot of times where it might be unethical to actually conduct the experiment or impossible. So go ahead and try this, and then we'll go over the answers. For forecasting the track of a hurricane would be a simulation. A treatment for disease would probably best be done with an experiment where you have a treatment and control group. Finding the number of voters would be a survey. This one, you definitely have 2 different groups, so that's an experiment. Determining if people take vitamin C. Let's see, I would be best to do an experiment with that, have a treatment group and a control group of maybe some people who do take vitamin C and the others who don't. Determining ask each person who walks into the store which brand's their favorite. That's a survey because you're asking people. Panel of students, once again, you're asking people, so that's a survey. If the panel of students is representative of the entire school, there's no problem there. This one, determine the percentage of cars who roll through a stop sign. You're probably just observing at the stop sign there, so that's observational. Using a coin to simulate what gender of the children, that would be a simulation, and that's a good example where it would take a long time and be kind of odd to tell people to hurry up and have 3 kids, so find out how likely they are to be girls. That's just not a good idea. So good use of a simulation there. And then finally, effectiveness of a new fertilizer to the existing fertilizer should be an experiment where you have one group of plants that gets the new fertilizer, another gets the existing fertilizer. Great use for an experiment. So an experiment is kind of the gold standard. If you can ethically find a way to have 2 different groups and compare them with an experiment, that's the best way to go. If you have something like the stop sign where it's hard to have 2 different groups, an observational study is good, and then other times surveys or even simulations might be beneficial. If you got any questions, please reach out via Zoom. Hopefully these videos have helped you get a basic understanding of statistics.